The invention of just one thing changed the ways of humanity forever. Since the first personal computer was invented in 1981, the world has witnessed a technological revolution like never seen before. It has impacted almost every aspect of our life and has even infiltrated our sports. At first, the technology was used to improve safety precautions for athletes, but now artificial intelligence is making an even bigger footprint. Modern sports still follow most of the rules that were created centuries ago. However, over the last decade, technology has proved reliable enough to aid humanity in the sporting world. Baseball is one of the sports using increasing amounts of technology to improve the quality of game, or so they say. The game has been totally changed as we have moved into a period known as the StatCast era. The name comes from the general interest in player statistics, and we're not just talking batting average or innings pitched. StatCast uses radar equipment and high-resolution cameras to track every movement on the baseball field. We can now see launch angle, spin rate, and exit velocity. According to Sports Illustrated, teams are not relying on scouts anymore. Technology has turned baseball into a math equation. These strange statistics now are the deciding factors of how much money players will receive each year. Although there are some benefits of this recent technology boom, there are just as many concerns being brought up. Evolving a game we call our national pastime seems counterintuitive. If we allow technology into the game, baseball could be changed forever, and we don't know if it could be a good thing or a bad thing. We have already seen some issues arise. The Houston Astros were found guilty of using technology to steal signs from the other teams. A television was intentionally placed in the dugout to decode the other team's signals. Tony Clark is the head of Major League Baseball's Player Association. He recently addressed the Astros' actions with the quote on screen now. The issue is that Major League Baseball has not taken the proper steps to integrate the technology into the game. New technology opens new opportunities for cheating, rule changes, and even more. Most long-term baseball fans do not seem to want the game modernized because of technology. However, baseball is a sport that has been on the decline over the past years. According to Forbes, game attendance and ratings have plummeted over 7% since 2015. This puts extra pressure on Commissioner Rob Manfred to attempt to make the game more engaging with younger fans. One way of him doing this is through technology. The StatCast era has been detrimental to the jobs of professional scouts. They are being replaced by artificial intelligence that can pick up much more information than humans. Unfortunately, they might not be the only people in danger of losing their jobs to computers.
Oh, Nick Lentz rings him up on a pitch well outside.
3-2. Outside corner for strike three.
Got him.
The base is empty. Here's Tyler White. White doesn't like that call, and everybody in the Astros dugout screaming at Ron Copa. That ball was nearly in the dirt. Alex Cintron leading the charge, and AJ says, no way is that a strike.
Since the first game of baseball was ever played, ball players and umpires have never gotten along. What if I told you the feud has gotten so bad that umpires are on the verge of losing their job to robots? One might think this technology is in the distant future, but it's a whole lot closer than anyone thinks. We have already seen this use of multiple cameras and sensors working together to triangulate the flight of objects in the sport of tennis. Major League Baseball has even taken advantage of a partnership with the Atlantic League to test this technology in real baseball games, and in 2017, Major League Baseball discreetly installed this system into every Major League ballpark. It is commonly used now to measure pitch velocity and location, which has been displayed on television broadcasts. It could only be a matter of time before umpires are replaced with this system that goes by the name of TrackMan. With a shortened season destined because of the outbreak of coronavirus, there has been talk of implementing this system into Major League Baseball as soon as this year. But are we really ready to let computers call balls and strikes? Commissioner Manfred believes that automated strike zones are already more accurate than human umpires. Recently, Fox Business interviewed Manfred and asked him about the logistics of robotic umpires. Here, Manfred explains the vision he has for the future of all umpires. It is key to note that Manfred still plans on having them standing in the field of play. He just wants to rely on technology to interpret balls and strikes. He is correct in saying that the strike zone is a three-dimensional figure that resembles the shape of home plate. The human brain and eyes will only allow the comprehension of the standard rectangular two-dimensional box. Therefore, the switch to an electronic strike zone will change hitters' and pitchers' perspectives. If TrackMan is as consistent as they say, eventually everyone will be able to adapt to this new strike zone. However, the Atlantic League did have some issues with the system. In the first month of use, TrackMan missed over 500 pitches, and by missed, I mean the pitches were never even picked up by the system. Therefore, the umpire would have to override. This makes it unfair because some players will have the humans calling pitches and some will have the computer. And obviously those two strike zones aren't going to be perfectly the same. Are umpires really that bad that this system that didn't locate 500 pitches is still a better alternative? Well, we don't know for sure. We're under the assumption that over time the technology will become better and better until it is perfected. According to Yahoo, human umpires miss around 20% of pitch calls. That means 1 out of every 5 pitches could have gone the other way. Do you know how many games outcomes that could have changed with the correct calls? Although this seems like we could fix certain outcomes, we do not know the full effects of this until it actually happens. For example, catchers will not be forced to frame the baseball anymore. This is the act of catching the ball in the strike zone to fool the umpire. Computers cannot be fooled the same way. It will change what teams look for in a catcher. They will be looking for more of an offensive catcher than a defensive one. Pitchers will be at a disadvantage most likely as well. The strike zone will be less lenient and more pitches will have to be thrown right down the middle. Forget the days of painting the outside corner with 95-mile-per-hour heaters. The game will become much more offensive just as Manfred wants. It all comes down to ratings and money at the end of the day, and more doubles and more home runs will lead to more interest in the game, especially from a young audience. Because the game will likely become more offensive, history could literally be changed. The oldest records in baseball go back over 100 years ago. It is possible that all these records could be shattered if umpires are relieved by computers. The history of America's sport is just too important to take this chance. Most of these old records have already been broken because of the improvement of human athletics over the last century. There is no reason to give modern players an advantage while chasing some of the greatest to ever do it. The old-timers earned it with the chance of human error behind the plate, as the game has always been played. At this point, it seems like making the switch will affect a whole lot more than just balls and strikes, and I do not see the worth in uprooting the entire sport of baseball. But, let's first take a look at what the people on the front line have to say. Apparently, umpire Joe West is getting sick of being yelled at. Joe has had some very memorable blown calls throughout his career, so I'm sure he's heard an earful from players and managers. Whose fault is it going to be when people don't agree with the computer's call? Players and umpires going at it has always been a part of the game. Everybody loves a manager sticking up for his team and getting kicked out of the game. No ejections certainly would hurt the ratings for Major League Baseball, as this is a very entertaining aspect of the sport. Surprisingly, during the Atlantic League trials, a manager was in fact ejected for arguing to the umpire that the computer blew the call. The computer didn't miss the call, but the strike zone varies more when a human umpire is calling it. Sometimes the strike zone shifts a bit depending on the count. For example, on a 3 balls no strike count, umpires are more likely to call pitches on the edge, strikes. The consistency of a computer takes away from the count affecting the calls, which has always been around. However, the majority of professional players seem to be fed up with real people behind the plate. In 2018, a 10-year veteran, Ben Zobrist, was ejected for the first time in his entire career. He used the post-game interviews to vouch for robot umpires, stating, "And that's why we want an electric strike zone." Although not all players feel this way, quite a bit have been pushing for it lately. I'm sure it will be a heavy topic at the next Players Association meeting with Major League Baseball. On the other hand, baseball fans really do not have a voice in this, which is really upsetting to me. From opinions gathered from my high school baseball team, 85.7% of the team agreed baseball should remain the same forever, and only 14.3% of people said umpires should be replaced by computers. Keep in mind this is a sample from kids aged 19 and younger. According to that data, if Rob Manfred does condemn this change, he could actually be hurting the ratings from a younger age group, and I know for a fact he does not want to be doing that. In conclusion, it does not seem okay, in my opinion, for Major League Baseball to change who is calling balls and strikes at this time. That would eventually lead to computers making simple calls like out and safe around the bases. And do we even have the technology for computers to tell us whether or not a batter broke the plane on a check swing? Issues like this must be thought about before jumping to a game-changing conclusion. We must work together as a fan base to preserve the sport like it has been preserved for us over the last 200 years. Too much change has proven to be bad for professional sports. Last year, National Football League fans were extremely upset with the new rule that pass interference can now be reviewed. This rule came into play in major moments last year and shifted the outcomes of some games. There is also still a possibility of playing a coronavirus-modified season this summer. We could see new rules tested, such as the implementation of TrackMan calling balls and strikes. If this happens and the computers prove more successful than human umpires, people against the change like me will have little hope left. That is why we must voice our opinion to the league and Commissioner Rob Manfred about how the fans feel about this subject. Utilizing tools such as signing petitions, sparking debate on social media, and publicizing the matter will help our cause to keep baseball a matter of the people instead of a matter of technology.